Tonight at 6, a furious President Trump insists the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran is holding. But he lashes out at both countries, particularly Israel, and then swears at reporters.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
Good evening. Donald Trump has launched an extraordinary foul-mouthed tirade against both Israel and Iran, accusing them of violating a ceasefire. As he left the White House for the NATO summit in the Netherlands, the president appeared angry that neither side had honoured a peace deal that he just announced only a few hours earlier. His call for them both to stop the fighting appears to have worked for now. Our international editor, Emma Murphy, has the latest.
To the very end, they waged their war. Israel's missiles hitting Tehran until the final moments. Iran, despite 12 days of war, still firing and hitting Israel as the ceasefire began, breaching the sanctity of the Iron Dome. 5 people were killed, their lives extinguished in the no man's land between war and peace. Israel fired the final salvo, infuriating the man who claimed the peace as his own.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either.
As he headed to the NATO summit, the president expressed an unusual level of public frustration with Israel.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
The past 12 days has seen regional turmoil which threatened to spill into one of the president's much vaunted forever wars. Brought the United States directly into conflict with Iran. It remains unclear how damaged Iran's nuclear program really is, despite the weekend strikes.
We need negotiations to ensure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon capability. And so the focus for all of us, whether it's here or elsewhere, has always been on de-escalate and allow that negotiated outcome to take place.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim.
Last night, Iran struck the Al Udeid air base in Qatar.
Coming from the direction of Al Udeid.
It was a direct response to America's strikes on its nuclear assets, but was accepted as a limited attack without need for reply. Hours later, Donald Trump announced the ceasefire. They are still trying to recover the dead from the 12 days of this war, aware, however bad it has been, it could have been so much worse. And without the ceasefire holding, it will be. Emma Murphy, ITV News, Iraq.
Well, that ceasefire appears to be holding tonight, but both sides launched major attacks in the final hours before they observed it. One struck a residential building in southern Israel. Our senior international correspondent John Irvine reports.
Each of Iran's parting shots involved a barrage of no more than 3 missiles. But 6 salvos of them meant Israelis had to await the ceasefire, cowering in shelters for far longer than at any other time during the war. And there ended up being another chink in Israel's armour. An apartment block in Beersheba took a direct hit. At least 4 people were killed, civilians for whom the war's dying minutes were exactly that. Tragic deaths right at the death. How did the missile get through?
How did the missile get through? As you can see, there is no 100%. So we had, just like in previous scenes that you've seen, there's no 100% of sealing in the air defense.
During the countdown to a ceasefire, Israel is used to having the last word. Just ask Beirut or Gaza. Therefore, this was a bitter blow right at the end of what this country regards as a successful campaign.
And I commend all those who've been involved in this operation, meaning an operation that clearly has a direct impact on the well-being and safety of the world, the region, and the state of Israel.
Israel has enjoyed some stunning successes in this war, but it has not been pain-free. Roughly 1 in 10 of the Iranian missiles sent this way have got through the defensive shield. And the ballistic warheads are big enough to have made this, the latest war, Israel's most destructive ever. President Trump has complained that the airstrikes on Iran carried out by the Israelis as the ceasefire approached were the biggest we have seen. This morning, the truce got off to a shaky start, but tonight it seems that a 12-day war characterized by missiles, drones and bunker busters may actually have been ended by an F-bomb dropped in Washington. John Irvine, ITV News, Tel Aviv.
Let's hear more from Emma now, who is in northern Iraq tonight, close to the border with Iran. And Emma, the ceasefire seems to be holding for now.
Yes, it does, although everybody is particularly anxious about the fact that it could falter at any stage. However, I think the US president has made very clear that he doesn't expect to see either side breaching the agreement that they reached in the early hours of this morning. What is notable is a comment from the Iranian president in the last couple of minutes where he says that Iran is willing to engage in conversations with regard to negotiations about their nuclear program. Now, that is something that was always seen as the way forward, and it seems that the Iranians are willing to accept that now. They were, of course, in the midst of negotiations when the war started and when the Americans hit the nuclear sites, but it does seem that they have agreed that they will go back to some form of discussion, and that of course is absolutely crucial because there is no way that they can solve this whole issue militarily. It will need to have some kind of diplomatic input, and it's likely that that will be involving the Americans and also the Europeans.
Well, Donald Trump will tonight arrive at The Hague, where he'll have dinner with the King and Queen of the Netherlands, along with his fellow NATO leaders. Tomorrow, they get down to business, and during his journey, he leaked on social media what appeared to be a private message from the head of NATO. Our Europe editor, James Mates, is at The Hague tonight. James, a lot for them to discuss, but first of all, the leak of that message from Mark Rutte, I mean, what does that suggest about the kind of reception Donald Trump will get?
Well, to say that European leaders have been nervous about what Trump might bring to this summit, what might happen here, is an understatement. But the Secretary-General of NATO, Mark Rutte, has made it his guiding purpose to manage President Trump, to be the Trump whisperer, if you like, to make sure that he stays committed to the alliance. So when Trump said he wanted defence spending up from 2% to 5% right across Europe, Mark Rutte has worked ceaselessly to get that commitment, Britain included, that regular defence spending, if you can call it that, will in future be 3.5%, with another 1.5% on top, bringing it to 5% on other related security expenditure. And to that end, he sent a message, an extraordinarily flattering message to President Trump today, saying he'd achieved that. First of all, he praised his decisive action against Iran, but then said, you will achieve something no American president in decades could get done. Europe is going to pay in a big capital letters way, as they should, and it will be your win. Now, we know enough about President Trump to know how much he would have enjoyed receiving that, and whether it was meant to be private or not, he immediately put it out on his social media site. So it is expected that he will arrive here very shortly in pretty good humour with all that. The one slight fly in the ointment is that when asked about Article 5, that commitment to the defence of one is the defence of all, that President Trump said, well, that depends how you define it. So there may still be trouble ahead.
All right, James, at The Hague, thank you. Well, at that meeting in the Netherlands, the UK has joined other NATO members in agreeing to a new higher defence spending target demanded by President Trump. But it's all new money. And what does it mean for the rest of Britain's stretched public services? Our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan, is here to explain. Carl.
Well, Lucrezia, this is how, as James was putting it, Europe is going to pay big in capital letters. NATO's defence spending target is rising from 2% of GDP to 5% by 2035. Now, the UK is already on course to spend 2.6% of GDP by 2027. But the jump to 5% isn't that big because the NATO target is made up of 3.5% of core defence spending and then 1.5% on resilience and security. Now, that is not yet fully defined, but the government says it will include cyber security, energy security and border security, including stopping small boats. But it's not new money. The government reckons it already meets that resilience and security spend, so the UK is already on track to spend 4.1% under the new definition. Although that does still leave us a cool £30 billion short of NATO's new target. So let's have a look at how it compares to other public spending. The government spends about 11%, here it is, 11% of GDP on healthcare and another 11% on pensions and benefits. Education costs a little over 4%. If defence spending rises to 5% at a time when healthcare spending is also set to rise, expect a squeeze on other budgets. In fact, today the government published a national security strategy which warns us to prepare for the possibility of the UK homeland coming under direct threat, explicitly adding that more tough choices can be expected as we head towards higher spending on defence and national security. So there is now pressure on ministers, Lucrezia, to set out what those tough choices will be.
All right.